Good evening. My name is Christian Aldo, and this week we're reading uh, selections from Big Sur by Jack Kerouac and The Swimmer by John Cheever. And I really enjoyed both of these stories, particularly because of its place in American history, American literature. We're in the post-war era, and a lot of questions about existentialism start coming into play as needs, wants, and desires seem to disappear, and so people start questioning the world around them a little more. And what we see here in the in the first part of Big Sur is talking about urban sprawl, and where there used to be a beet farm, there is now a city there. And this is just seems to be like a reoccurring theme with literature, well, with Jack Kerouac in this time, and this notion of traveling and romanticism and going across the country, and the San Francisco Bay Area, which is all present in Jack Kerouac's works. In the second part of Big Sur, and I believe, yeah, in chapter 13 here, we have we'll just move on to the last part. We start to see the formation of fashions in the 1960s, and like where people would wear like clean slacks and also have holes in their shoes as a fashion statement, or that would have never been seen before this point. And there's also a bunch. You start to see some countercultural movement, which is definitely a huge contribution to the hippie movement, the 60s, and just all these religions like Buddhism and stuff like that would have never normally been considered in decades prior. And I think that's just kind of what Jack Kerouac tries to encapsulate in this book, or in this selection of this book. So, and without further ado, we're going to move on to the next one, which is The Swimmer by John Cheever. Now, this is particularly interesting because I always thought the notion of suburbia was interesting, just like little boxes on a hillside, all looking the same, is really interesting to me. But this is a very, very fun story to read. And so we have the main character, who is Nettie Merrill, and then his wife Lucinda, and they're all drunk around their pool in the beginning of the story. And then as we move along, he decides he wants to swim along around the county, and he swims in all the people's pools that represented people in his life that he had neglected to visit. And kind of the character Nettie, to me, seems like Don Draper from Mad Men, and as he puts himself into this life of I think that swimming in pool also symbolizes swimming and alcohol constantly, and that's a huge part of the story, and it's something that also Don Draper does in the show Mad Men. And it's kind of this whole urban sprawl, suburbia, paradise lost kind of notion. And by the end of the story, he visits all these people, old flings and stuff like that. And so by the end of the story, he gets to his home, and what does he come to? Rust on the garage, and he looks in and no one's there, which means that his family had left him. So by the end of the story, he was financially ruined. Looks like his family had left him, and all his friends and everybody he had neglected were gone as well. And I think that another thing is he thought it was still midsummer, when really autumn was rolling in and the cold was really coming. And so there's a lot of symbolism in this story, and I really liked it. Anyway, so that was this week of week 12 in English 212, and hope you all have a great week. Thanks. Bye.